Good morning and welcome to Inside South Florida. I'm Dave Azer and I hope you're having a great weekend so far. On the show today, we break down Election Day from all angles, show you a website that helps you have a healthier, more fulfilled lifestyle, tell you about some great philanthropy going on in South Florida and how you can get involved, and uncover a study about concussions and youth football. All that and more as Inside South Florida starts now. As you probably know, Tuesday is Election Day, but what you may not know is how much impact South Florida might have on the race. Here to fill you in on that, as well as some local races and amendments, is Doug Lyons from the Sun Sentinel. All right, Doug, we got a lot to cover today. You ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's get it on.
We're just a couple of days away from the election. Let's start with the big race, the race for president, obviously, and then we'll talk about some local races. How important is South Florida to capturing the state of Florida for either Obama or Romney?
Well, most of the pundits will focus on the I-4 corridor around Orlando, but being a South Florida pundit, I would say that South Florida is very important, particularly to Obama's chances if he wants to win Florida and get reelected. Broward County, as you well know, is the most Democratic populated county in the state of Florida, and a big turnout of Democrats in this county will help the president. If the turnout is not that great, and we know that both sides are really excited about this race, but if the Democrats don't have a really good turnout in Broward County, Romney has a good chance of taking the state.
What I think has been pretty interesting is that Romney has spent a lot of time down here. Obama has as well. They've both been down to University of Miami multiple times. Mm-hmm. But the fact that the Republican Party is making such a concerted effort to capture South Florida kind of leads you to believe that they think they've got a real chance to win it.
Well, the other part that makes South Florida so interesting is that the largest collection of Republicans are in Miami-Dade County. So with the Cuban community and white Republicans and the few black Republicans that are out there, let's face it, I mean, Romney would be foolish not to come down here and campaign for that vote. I mean, it's a large segment, and he wants good Republican turnout to offset the Democratic turnout in Broward and other parts of the state.
Let's talk about merit retention. A lot of people may not know what this is, but this is pretty interesting.
This is one of those down ballot issues that people should pay attention to. 3 Supreme Court justices are up to be retained, and they are basically fighting for their political lives because outside groups, as well as the Republican Party of Florida, have teamed up to campaign against these justices. They want them off the bench, and if they can get enough voters to say no, then you remove 3 justices from the Supreme Court, which gives Governor Rick Scott the opportunity to pick 3 replacements. The justices have worked hard to campaign, not so much for themselves, but for the idea that merit retention was a reform that Florida needs to protect justices and district court judges, appellate judges, against outright campaigning and the ill effects of politics.
But what makes it difficult for them is that, as you just mentioned, they're not really campaigning for themselves.
I mean, judges,
they are, but they're not.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, they have rules and canons that prevent them from outright. They can't raise money themselves. They have to ask others to do that for them. I mean, there are certain restrictions, and they're not really running against an opponent. The way it's set up, the voters are asked to either retain them or not, and usually judges and justices really have to mess up to get the voters that outraged to kick them off the bench. But this time you have outside political groups and, well, I said the state Republican Party have decided to make an issue out of it, and they're campaigning to get those 3 justices, Fred Lewis, Peggy Quince, and Barbara Pariente, off the bench.
Right, so a lot at stake in that regard. All right, the last thing is, give me one amendment on the ballot that's most interesting to you, most controversial, that people should really be aware of when they vote.
Well, there's so many. I mean, the legislature cranked out 11 hinky constitutional amendments. I mean, if you're a purist who doesn't like to see your Constitution, jacked up, you'd probably vote no on all of them. But the one that intrigues me is the Amendment 8, That's the one that deals with kind of religious freedom. It's really not about religious freedom. It's really about the Republicans are trying to strike down a provision in the Constitution that prevents public money to go to religious schools and institutions. If they can get that amendment passed, that changes things so that the legislature can come back and say, okay, we're going to start giving money that the taxpayers have earmarked for public schools to religious schools. That's what Amendment 8 is really all about. And I kind of shake my head whenever I hear someone say, oh, this is for the freedom of religious institutions. No, it's not.
All right, so there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of sort of clever wordplay that I think is kind of thrown around here all over the place.
Yes.
We'll have you back on down the road after the new president is elected. We'll talk about what it means to South Florida and some of these local races as well.
I'll look forward to it.
It's always good to have you here. I've known you for years. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you much. Appreciate the time.
All right, man. Good to see you.
All right.
With Florida's 29 electoral votes up for grabs, Election Day in South Florida and across the state should be intense. When we come back, a website that's one-stop shopping for living a healthier lifestyle.